the American melting pot, constructing the Muslim American. All right, so 3 main points, and then inshallah we'll break, and then of course we can we have the evening session, right, for Q&A. So if you remember something, extraordinary, let us know. Whenever the polls ask people, are Islamic values compatible with American values? Inevitably, if the rate of response is skewed negative against Islam, meaning more people say, let's say for the sake of example, 80% of the people say Islamic values and American values are incompatible. The second question most frequently asked of those same people, the same sample, do you know a Muslim? Inevitably, the number will be quite high of the number of people who say, I do not know a Muslim. Do you follow what I just said? Those who think Islamic values are not compatible with American values inevitably have never, ever met a Muslim, let alone interacted with them, let alone understood their faith or the messenger that brought their faith. Why do I start there? We're going through a context, if you lay out the context of growing pains, that we think that Muslims are the first victims of this kind of hatred and bigotry in America. And hopefully, if you're even the most minimal student of history in America, you understand that these growing pains we're going through, in talking about us reviving and developing, constructing the Muslim American, are actually not unlike what other communities went through, especially those who associated with a particular faith. Very briefly, because we're short of time. Study what it means to be nativistic. Study what nativism is. Nativism is a profound understanding and belief that people who are not like us will settle among us and will destroy us from within. Let me repeat that. People who are not like us will settle among us and will destroy us from within. What does that mean? In the 1840s, Catholics, mostly from Ireland, arrived in America in largest numbers ever known in recent American history. When they came, these were the arguments made about them, and see if you can draw the parallels for the sake of time. These Catholics will never be good Americans. They will never be patriotic. Why? Because they will never uphold the Constitution, for their loyalty and their affiliation is to something external in the form of a pope across the oceans. Number 2, these Catholics will never be able to become American because essentially their way of life is different than our way of life. And number 3, these Catholics will most likely amass wealth in this land to remove it and send it to another land. Because again, their loyalty and affiliation rests with an external force in the form of the Pope. Anything about what I said sound alien to you about what they're saying about Muslims? Yes or no?
No.
So it was a weird question. Some of you are like, do I say yes or do I say no? Let's try that again. Are there parallels between how the Catholics were treated and how the Muslims are currently, the same questions being raised about Muslims right now? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. So I have nothing else to say. Right? You got it. A Department of Justice official in a gathering in DC where I was present just about 3 weeks ago said, if I was to stand up before you and say, there are people whose houses of worship are being used to store weapons in the basement, to potentially train their children to attack our system, and to potentially undermine American values, what group do you think we were talking about? And he essentially led the people to realize that that's exactly what was being said about the Catholics. So we talk about constructing the Muslim American. We have to understand that we are a part of a history whose core, at the essence, in the land, is a thirst for social justice, is a thirst for fairness, is a thirst. It doesn't come on my schedule. African Americans as slaves for 6 centuries, before even 1965, less than 50 years ago, someone said, shouldn't we have the Voting Rights Act? Shouldn't we have the Civil Rights Act? Muslims in our largest numbers have been in America for just about 50 or 60 years, if you think of the largest migration that occurred after the reform of the immigration Act in 1965. Think about what that means. We are looking to people as if we're reminding them of another people that came before. And what did they say to them? And what did they do with them? Number one, they said to them, you are not going to destroy our way of life. And who is the they I'm talking about? Anybody know? Let's see how good you are with American history. Who was against the Catholics? Who in America was against the Catholics? You're shy. You're nervous. You're like, what if we get kicked out for saying that? What is it? Who was it? Native Americans? The Protestants. The Protestants. Talk about divisiveness within one faith. It was the Protestants. And we bought it hook, line, and sinker. Why? If you think about the work ethic, what is the word you understood in social studies in elementary and middle school? What is the work ethic called? The Protestant work ethic. Because nobody else could work as hard as we Protestants to set up this nation. You lazy Catholic showing up here, you want to go to our schools? You're going to recite our prayer at the beginning of the school day. And the Catholic says, the blank with you, I'm not going to say any other prayer other than what my people tell me, my priests tell me to say. They say to them, you'll never achieve political office because we don't trust you to uphold the Constitution. And what do the Catholics do? You will amass wealth because you're going to send it overseas. What do the Catholics do? Number one, they said, if we have to say a prayer to go to your schools, we're not going to take it lying down. We're going to set up the best schools. The best schools for elementary, middle, high school, colleges and universities. Look at Georgetown, Notre Dame, Loyola. They're going to be the talk of the town. Our high schools are going to be those that have waiting lists. And subhanAllah, they said it was worth it for us to build institutions where our children learn our faith. We don't have to say your prayer. We're not going to take it lying down. Look at the history of Islamic schools. It's very recent. We weren't thinking about our religion. We were not thinking about our faith. We were not thinking about building institutions. In fact, we were so convinced we were not going to live here, we didn't even plan to die. I have communities calling me, we want to raise money because we're going to build a cemetery. Are you serious? Like after 60 years of being in America, you realize you might need a cemetery? Right? I'm not kidding. Go to small towns, and I'm sure in Washington State and other places, small towns, and look at the old churches. What is next to the old churches? The cemeteries. They wanted to bury their dead in dignity, the rites of passage in life, and the rituals that take them into death. They said they couldn't hold political office, and people stood by it. Until 120 years after 1840s, in 1960. Who was elected president? You guys are so shy, it's amazing. Use your Twitter voice, amplify. Who was it? Kennedy. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, who did not finish his term. Who did not finish his term. When they said it, they meant it. You Catholics will never hold public office. And there's never been a Catholic president before, nor was there one after. A racial divide was even transcended above Catholic and Protestant. So a black president could actually come into office, but not a Catholic. That's how deep-seated that was. Are you patient enough to wait 120 years? Are you ready to wait for 120 years? They want to talk about amassing wealth. You know what the Catholics did? Look at the Catholic Church. It is by far the richest church, owning the most prime inner city properties that everybody is dying to get. So one interpretation, although never justified, of this clergy scandal that arose was that this was one other view was to literally bleed the church dry of all of its resources by causing it to be lost in the loops of litigation. So when they come after Muslims, Islamic organizations, and put us into the system to say, keep fighting to show us, you want to build that masjid, come and fight us. Spend money with lawyers. This Muslim American that we're trying to construct is threatening to many people, right? Threatening to many people. So the context is very critical. You have to understand our history here in America, and especially what can be done about it. And by the way, I speak to you today. It just happened. I was talking to Brother Zain since February, and early on by this conference. But today we're talking about constructing the Muslim American. London, the news comes out of London that their worst nightmare happened. No, seriously, yeah. The kebabs are not going to have any spices anymore. It's going to be bland. Yeah, that's their worst nightmare, was one day they would take away the spice trade, right? Sadiq Khan, the son of a bus driver, became the first mayor, is the story. But if you're a history student and a student of Islam, you know full well there have been Muslims who were heads of cities, heads of provinces and regions throughout Europe, throughout these last centuries. So don't get caught up and stay saying first this or first that. Say, subhanAllah, look what's happened. I go to the Netherlands to do guest lecturing. In Rotterdam, there's Muhammad Abu Talib, who's of Moroccan descent, who was a mayor of Rotterdam. Who's already been a mayor of Rotterdam in the Netherlands. So it's not the first. It's among maybe the first in this current modern age, in the current way we're talking about. Let me close up. The last main point about the melting pot is that what are we looking at? What are we looking for? I write in the social work literature about faith-inspired citizenship. Faith-inspired citizenship. So let your faith inspire you to do the best. Let my faith inspire me to do the best. And what is the ultimate goal? It is to improve the condition of life and living for every person, regardless of whatever demographic characteristics that divide us. And if we are to truly talk about the reviving and the construction of a new Muslim American or a different Muslim American, we have to begin by saying, one, what is my level of religious literacy? If you Google Institute for Social Policy and Understanding, and I'm a fellow associated with that think tank, it's a Muslim think tank. We did a study on religious literacy, you'll find out just the state of illiteracy that exists in the Muslim community. We are not going to revive anyone without knowing the basics. The last thing I need from you is if I'm suffering or choking and you've never done CPR, is to try to attempt to do CPR on me. Or Heimlich, if you've only known the word but never actually done it, do not approach me. Let me just pass away in peace, right? Because the Heimlich can actually kill a person if not done correctly, right? I mean, the xiphoid process is a very delicate piece right here. Right? If you don't do it correctly, you could actually mess the person up. They're like, I think they would have been okay if probably just spit out the piece of lettuce, right? And you just caused them to die. So what is that going to be? So Allah says in the Quran, "Kuntum khayra ummah," that you are the best of nations, ukhrijat linnas, that are rising from the people. And I am convinced with every cell in my body, and I wouldn't travel like this, I wouldn't give up family time if I didn't feel this. With every cell in my body, we are in the best possible position. We are living in the best times for Islam. So this Muslim American we're talking about is no longer a dream, is no longer an abstraction. It is a reality, and it is a reality whose time has come. It is a woman, it is a man. It is a young person, it is an old person. It is a person of African descent, it is a person of Central Asian descent. It is a person with minimal wealth, it is a person with a lot of wealth. It is a person with beginning understanding of Islam. It is a person with a lot of understanding of Islam, but minimal application. The intersectionality of these things is what gives us hope. So as you sit here in these next sessions, inshallah, we hope that each of you will say, how can I be that Muslim American? If my time has come, what will be my contribution? What will be my contribution? Will it be that I was the source of divisiveness, or will it be that I was a source of innovation? Following the lead of those who came before me. Following the lead of those who came before me. Why? Because if you look, how was the state of Islam? What was the state of Islam? What was the state of that Muslim American, Muslim North African, Muslim wherever? It was always those who followed the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and they did it with deep love. They excelled in everything they did. They excelled in everything they did. And I can tell you from traveling, we have children who are memorizing the entire Quran. In America, by the age of 10, 11, 12. In America. You know why? Because that melting pot was a fallacy. We don't have to melt and give away everything, because melting is a chemical, if you will, a process that actually everything falls away and just becomes one blob. We have to be that mixing bowl that takes the best of every part of Islam from wherever it comes and thrives. that Quran memorization has increased so much because of the arrival of Somalis in America in 1990s. I can say that without a doubt because my dissertation is on the Somali community. I can say that without a doubt because when they came, they said, this is something we did in our country, we're not going to give it up. And they set up small little areas. The Duksi in Somalia was replaced here, and people started memorizing. But those children, Somalis and South Asian and Arab, are now with pride going on, having memorized the Quran, to become doctors and social workers and journalists, lawyers, political science, international affairs. Now, when they look at the world, the lens is actually the Quran, brought into focus through the seerah of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and honed in on a problem that inshallah we can solve. So, as we